What's up, everybody? Today's episode 6 of the Dropcast. On this episode, we're going to be with one of our film mentors and old WCC instructors, Garrett Sammons. He's a YouTuber and a really good all-around film guy.
Filmmaking guru, if you will.
Yeah, he teaches us a lot of stuff, and I can let Trey touch on that.
Yeah. Garrett is huge mentor of ours. I look to him for a lot of our questions and what have you. He's really, I would owe it a lot to where I'm at today because of him. We met in his cinematography classes. Not you and I, but like the whole like community. I mean, he really brought like the whole WCC like film team together, if you will. And just I don't know, showing me the ropes, man. This guy is a film guru, like I said, and just a beast behind the camera and really knowledgeable. But the reason why he's not sitting here today is because our lovely Zoom decided to not record the first minute of it. So
Like first 2 minutes.
Yeah,
So
we're just here doing the little intro right now, just to get you guys caught up to speed. But basically, we did this little intro, and then we were just talking about WCC and how we got our start. But I'm going to give him a little background to this episode.
It's interesting, too, because there's just a little bit of Garrett in both of us. You know, he taught Trey a lot of the ropes with the camera, and he also taught me a lot of the ropes with the business aspect. So this is a good podcast if you guys want to tune in.
Yeah, and Zoom, if you're watching this, can you...
What's up, bro?
Podtrack P4, man. What happened there?
It says it's recording, and then it doesn't.
Yeah, I have no idea how to explain that. It was 1 minute in. We didn't touch record or anything. So,
but beyond that, when this podcast gets started in about 10 seconds here, we're going to be talking about how we didn't really learn a whole lot in film until we got plopped into Garrett's classes. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, let's jump into it and
bow.
Yeah, we're trying to fix that over there. Wow. Okay, so I met you guys pretty early on then.
Yeah, 2016.
Something like that.
15, 16.
Nice.
But yeah, Garrett was one of the people that really helped me understand a lot that was going on around me when it came to the film community, because not only did I not necessarily know a lot, especially even though I took a couple of those intro classes, things were really intimidating at first. And I think he did a really good job of smoothing things out and just being like, you're missing a few important things that you should learn about. One, how to expose an image properly.
Which is unfortunate that you have to get to like a 200 level class in order to learn that. But yeah, no, it's, this is one of those things that like filmmaking is the most expensive hobby that you could be in, but like a pretty lucrative career if you want to do it for money. So like anytime I have students that are like, yeah, I'm thinking about getting into this, like for the amount of money that it's going to take to get into this, I can show you other hobbies. like, it doesn't make sense. And that's what like I think is really cool. Like the filmmaking community talks a lot of crap on like the new iPhone with cinematic mode and like all this stuff and whatever. It's like it's a tool that's not going to replace what we're doing. But for the people,
it's still a tool in itself.
It's still a tool. And like for people who want to kind of get in it, but not full send the way that you have to, that kind of stuff is perfect for that.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to move this over again. Oh, I might be fully like...
Little minor adjustments here.
All right, is that better? And I'm actually going to tilt it a little bit so I can actually like look at you guys and talk at the same time.
We might keep that in. We might cut it. Who knows? Probably will.
Is that...
There was a lot of horrible noises, so we should cut it.
Yeah. Anyway.
But to go back in, Garrett, you were talking about... what?
Just like that
Inexpensive?
iPhone photography. And just like to piggyback off of that, like real quick, like the gear trap that so many filmmakers fall into is a real thing. And I mean, it's a consumer mindset. And I mean, everyone has it in any field, but just everything's always going to be progressing and getting better. And like people will just like constantly wanting to get the hottest and best new thing. But like you're saying, with an iPhone, you can still get the fundamentals down of like what you're looking to achieve in video making, or at least get the starting blocks of if you like it or not,
Yeah, and the turnover for gear is so high.
It's like 2 or 3 times a year.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah,
And new stuff is
4
coming out.
months, if
Right.
that, yeah.
So it's like, if you're in it for the gear, you're going to have a very expensive and very bad time. But it's like if you start small and then upgrade when you outgrow wherever you're at. Like, I don't think anybody, and I say this from my ivory tower of white privilege, I don't think that anybody should have to go into the red for gear. Like, I think that if you structure your business and how you approach the world of filmmaking, you can use the tools that you have on hand or borrow the tools from, whoever or whatever, and then work your way up to where your business is the one that's then investing in the gear. Ideally. I mean, that's in a perfect world.
Yeah,
Doesn't always make
that's a huge point that you bring up too, and like you, I think, were probably the first one that told me that is like writing your gear into budgets and like charging clients for your gear because that gear didn't just plop into your lap.
Yeah, and if you did,
it might.
If
but
you didn't have it, you'd have to rent it.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so either way, the client's going to have to pay for it. And since you invested in the gear, you should get paid for that investment.
And I remember you telling us that in class too, when you were like, "This gear should be paid off in a year." And if you didn't, or was it a year?
Yep.
You're like, and if you didn't, then don't necessarily think of it as a loss, but it's basically a loss.
Yeah, you're taking an L on that for sure. And that should contextualize what you're buying and how expensive the camera is that you're buying. Because the best time to buy a camera is never. Because like you're saying, there's going to be a new camera that comes out within months of whenever you buy one. So if you're trying to get something that's like the best of the best, enjoy it for 3 months or just rent, but if the goal is to use a tool to make money at what we do, and that investment should then bring dividends, you should figure out how much money you're making, how long that's going to take you to pay off the thing, and then that's what you should go after.
Yeah, it's your production fee.
It's also determinant in like what category of film or photography that you're into, because like if you're doing just like YouTube videos or something, like it doesn't make sense for you to pull the trigger on an Alexa full package,
Sure.
So like,
Unless you're Will Smith's YouTube channel.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
But yeah, just the importance of like what you're like. There's a per use case for all types of gear, and like there's a overkill, if you will, in so many categories that.
Oh yeah, and my students ask a lot, like, what camera should I get? It's like, well, what do you want to do? There is no one camera that's going to do everything that you want. Like, even like you take an industry standard camera like an Alexa, right? So you take the Alexa Mini LF would be a dog shit camera to shoot weddings with.
Right.
Like that is not the camera to go to do live event stuff. Like that's not what that camera. That's a production camera. In the same way that you wouldn't take a broadcast camera and try to make that work for filmmaking. Like there's such different tools for different things. And that goes, there's two really weird sub camps within like the world of internet filmmakers, where there's one, which they're just gatekeepers, where it's like, if you're not shooting with an Alexa, you're an idiot and you're not a real filmmaker. Like that's like one half. And then like the other half, going to what you were talking about, was like, there's this like weird consumerism YouTube thing of like, this is the newest whatever. If you want to be a filmmaker, this gear is going to get you there. You're going to be better for it if you have gear.
And I think too, one of the things that you also pointed out to us very early on was like, your film is only as good as your storytelling, and like is only as good as your shot variety, and only as good as like how you know how to use that camera. Because a lot of people just think like, oh, I have a properly exposed image, I can put it in some slow-mo, get some lens flares, and people are like, oh, filmmaking,
I'm so sick of slow motion.
Yeah.
For that reason. Like most people use slow mo. I was just talking to Sam and Lewis about this earlier. On most of like the filmmaking blogs and forums and subreddits and whatever, people always post like still frames of their projects, but never actually post the project. And it's like, I can take some of the work that I've done.
Frames just look so good.
I can take some of the work that I've done that's awful and find a frame that works, but like you're just a photographer that has overkill gear. Like you're spending way too much money to get a photo, where it's like, what we should be focusing on is like intentionally moving the camera, how we lens the camera, where do we place the camera, how does that
boom
contribute?
up, boom left,
Exactly.
boom down.
Yeah. Just can we just get a pan up? Like, yeah. But like getting all of that and thinking about the camera just as a part of the way that we tell a story. You're never going to get a camera that's going to make you a better filmmaker. That doesn't exist.
Yep.
Right? Even when you take like an industry standard camera like the Mini, right? The Alexa Mini, 9 times out of 10, if you're on a big shoot, that's the camera. Nobody's even questioning what camera you're bringing.
That camera also looks so good because there is that whole team behind it. Like you
Right.
take a Mini and you go shoot it in your house, you can compare the camera that's shooting right here side by side, and they'll look pretty identical to like the naked eye. Not to mention on social and stuff too.
But like, I could hand you, when you guys were in 105, if I handed you an Alexa, you would not
I wouldn't want to touch it.
But you wouldn't make anything that looked good.
Yeah, you wouldn't be making the next Stranger Things or
It
Christian
wouldn't happen.
Like, yeah.
Right? And if that was the case, we'd all just, put a second mortgage on our house and go get them, and then we'd all be doing that. And it's like, that's not real life.
And I think, too, a perfect example of this is Trey. Like, we took your Komodo, which, by the way, it looks amazing. And we shot that whole entire Porsche spec ad. And it looked great. It's amazing. But there was still like a thing where it's like, oh, I wish we would have gotten just like a little bit more nature or a little bit more of this or that. And it's like, that was kind of something that fell into the constraints of the day. But at the same time, it's like, those are crucial storytelling things. Of course, also adapting and moving around it and through it is also part of filmmaking. But at the same time, it's just a perfect example of like even the best camera, you can still like miss crucial little things.
Yeah. For every dollar that you would spend on gear, if you traded every dollar for a minute spent in pre-production, you'd make a better film.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Say that again.
For every dollar that you would spend on gear thinking that's going to make you a better filmmaker, if you just put that in, every dollar is a minute in pre-pro, whatever project you're working on is going to be infinitely better for having pre-pro than for trying to have something that's the best thing that's out right now.
Yeah, put 1,200 minutes into pre-production rather than $1,200 into a Alexa Mini package.
You would have an incredible short because everything would be thought out. Your lighting would be thought out. Your camera angles would be thought out. Like,
granted, time versus money is blends together, but is a
right.
And it's like even with that Porsche thing, we had a lot of pre-production, but there's always still little things that you're like,
Right. The things you can't control.
I heard a great quote today by someone I was talking on the phone with today, and they said, in filmmaking, or like as a kid, I always wanted to be a fireman, but today I didn't know. What is it? Growing up, I always wanted to be a firefighter, but little did I know I am a firefighter just in the video world. I'm butchering it. That's not it. But basically, he wanted to make the point that he just puts out fires all day.
Yeah.
In a sense. So
They must be a producer.
yeah. I got the vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd say that's literally what I do all the time.
Yeah. Just
I wish I remember that quote better though, because it rang.
Yeah, it's all right. I butcher every quote I make. So.
And it's funny too because I always have like this imposter syndrome calling myself a producer because it's like I'm not actually like in Hollywood like what would be considered a producer because I'm not like dumping all my money into everything and like really making it happen. But even still, just like the day-to-day secretary work, it's like it's putting out fires left and right.
I mean, to tie in both of those comments about butchering somebody else's quote and then going into that, James Cameron gave an interview. He's a fascinating guy, but he gave an interview where he talks about hating the word aspiring. Like, the word aspiring, especially in what we do, is so stupid. It's like if you have shot something, you are a cinematographer. You don't even have to get paid to do it. Are you shooting? Then you're a cinematographer. Now we just have to negotiate rates, right? Go from free work to paid work and so on and so forth. But like, I'm an aspiring writer. Well, have you never written? Like, is it a thought?
You're aspiring to write. Like,
Yeah,
go
like,
write.
Go write, and then you're a writer who like, and then work towards writing something that's better. I mean, the thing is that your first film is always going to suck. Your second film is always going to suck. Your third film is always going to suck. And it's like you just progressively suck less until you get to a point to where what you're doing is something that you like. But like if you never make the jump to do the thing, and you're always living in this world of like, well, I want to be this thing or whatever, maybe like someday, it's like you're wasting your own time.
And Trey,
that goes with everything too, like just any sort of aspect or creative outlet. I would say, like I think about that a lot. I would say it's just like go out and do it, So. It's always going to be a thought or in your head unless you
Yeah, like because I was a huge advocate of like just wait, like we're like 90% there. You know what I mean? If we can get to that 99% of like perfection, like this will be a perfect pitch or this or that. And I remember you would always get on me because you'd be like, John, I feel like if we're just waiting until we get to that 99%, like somebody at 70% is going to jump and we're not going to jump with them and then we're going to miss it. And I was just like, all right, you're right. Let's like go, you know? So it's the same thing.
One of those other dumb platitudes that like still works though is like 80% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%.
Where it's like, especially in what we're doing, it's like we can obsess about 3 frames of an edit, that we're the only people that are going to see those 3 frames. And it's like, and that's one of the things that I love about my wife is that like she's so not in this world that she's like a blank canvas that I'll show her something, and if it stands out,
great.
Yeah, if it stands out to her, I'm like, okay, I know we definitely need to fix that.
Yeah.
But like if she's like, yeah, it's perfect, I was like, great, okay, so those 6 frames that I've spent the last 4 hours on don't matter.
It's like the importance of focus grouping too, because you got to remember every filmmaker is always going to find an excuse to pick apart your shit. But like
absolutely.
the common eye, who you're selling to or who the client's selling to, they're not going to really catch a lot of the stuff.
To that point, one of my first mentors in this world, because most of what I do obviously is like commercial. Like I like to do creative stuff when I can, but that's so far and few between. You know,
Well, they need
compared
money.
to what I do. Well, of course. But he had this whole thing of like, I will leave one glaring mistake in a first draft edit that I give to a client because every client wants to have something to critique and to like edit. And if I leave something in there that's so obvious, they'll get that satisfaction or the illusion of choice that it's like, hey, we need to really pull that. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's a great point. We'll absolutely pull it. Whereas
that's a
If
pretty,
it's perfect, they're
pretty
just going to
deep-
pick it apart.
and have no idea what they're doing,
You're
and
like,
then
damn.
right, and then you're going to end up with like a worse piece
Yeah.
than otherwise. So it was a fascinating. But I do that every now and again, not with all clients, but like if I have a particularly difficult client, I'll absolutely do that because that micromanaging thing that they have,
We'll have to try that. That's a very interesting reverse psychology kind of
Absolutely.
way of thinking about
The
it.
illusion
I
of
like it.
choice.
Yeah,
Because
I like
if you
that.
give it to them, that's where it's like perfect. It might be something where they're like, oh, well, this isn't really exactly how I envisioned it. So the next thing you know, they're trying to switch the whole thing. Like, can we cut the front, put the back, and put it to the front? Can we try it this way?
Right.
It's just like, oh man.
right, and then that's why you should always save your dated iterations of your edit because I'll get 14 rounds into revisions on a project, and then they'll be like, can we just go back to round
Yeah.
2? Well, we can, but I overwrote it, so now I have to like redo all the work. It's like just save
Dig
your
into
edit.
auto saves, just
Absolutely.
hoping you find it.
When me and Trey go through timelines, depending on who has it, like if I'll get it, I'll just take a copy of Trey's timeline and just move it to the right and then just start editing that as mine. Or even with like clients, they'll be like, can I get this changed? And I'll be like, well, I'm not going to want to change it back, so copy and paste. And then now this is like keep going down the timeline, and you'll just see where it keeps changing. So if I want to go back, I can just go back on the timeline, and it's my first iteration.
Non-destructive editing.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll just do it to where I'll copy the sequence and I just lead with the date. So, it's like November 1st, November 3rd, November 8th. And then that way they're all like separated. But then I can just kind of like go back into those spaces and
Yeah,
quickly
that's
kind
handy.
of find that. Yeah.
Super handy.
So kind of got a little intro going. Garrett, I want to talk to you about kind of like who you are and just like what you do and how you not only got into it, but also kind of like what you're doing now with your name as Garrett Sammons, with like your YouTube channel, your clients that you have, such as like Light Panels and, Anton, and like, is it Wood and Camera too or no?
Oh, yeah, it's the
So,
whole
like,
Viatech umbrella.
yeah, let's talk about that. When did you get into filmmaking? Like
Oh, man.
what pushed you in there?
Sure. So I grew up in Southern California, and I had the good fortune of my dad worked in marketing for Infiniti, the car company.
Okay.
So from like a super young age,
It was
like,
Mad Men in that house.
well, and I was going on to like these crazy TV commercial film sets because like you're in LA, there are these cars, they're dropping huge money on these ads for luxury vehicles.
Yeah.
And so like growing up, I was like looking around and be like, oh, well, this is
The
obvious.
biggest like mainstream
Right.
sets around at
Where
the
it's
time.
like, this is absolutely what I'm going to be doing. Like, why would I do anything else? I see this whole thing. And then, of course, like, then when you try to start doing it on your own, and you're like, well, what do you mean we can't get a techno crane?
In Michigan too, let alone.
Like, what do you mean we can't have, a 7-figure budget for this project? It's like, I have to fund this myself?
Yeah, that's a unique upbringing too. Like not like most who then like some of their first times on bigger sets, or
Right.
like after they're in the industry. So
Right.
But
that's
you-
pretty valuable, I would say.
Oh,
as
for
a person
sure.
growing up, you know.
Yeah. I always had like an end goal. Like I knew
Yeah.
where I wanted this stuff to end up, where I feel like most folks, it's like you're starting base level and then like working your way up to it, where it's like I'm still working my way up, but I have a very clear vision of like where that goes.
And did you say you started, like your father was in the marketing side of all of it?
Yeah.
So then, but then you decided that you wanted to go into the production side of it, like
Right.
camera and everything. Because you
Right.
were like, that's,
Yeah. Oh God, it's so much cooler to be on set and doing the making than it is to sit behind a desk and like just
talk
think
about it,
Right.
conceptualize it.
But you know, I got a little bit of both.
Oh, there we go.
See, that's not a quiet alarm.
You got to turn your ringer all the way down.
I thought I did.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot. That's got run stop, doesn't it?
It does, yep. That's, I mean, that brings up a good point on per use case
Right.
scenarios. I mean, granted, unlimited runtime would be nice, but I mean, we're not going to film this with the Black Magic, film it in RAW for this whole thing.
I've got a
so
couple
we're using
XFs
the-
about to come on the market here. If you're,
Well, like just a per use case, like
Oh, for sure.
the Black Magic shooting in RAW 6K would just be complete
Unnecessary.
overkill for this. So like we're shooting on a Fuji X-T4, granted it's 4K, 10-bit color and everything.
Right.
It gets the job done just fine.
Yeah.
So
well, and I for the YouTube stuff, I was always filming in log for the longest time, and then I was like, why? I'm literally just coloring this to Rec 709.
that's a good point.
You don't need to grade talking head YouTube stuff. So like, what am I doing? I'm just adding more work for myself. So then when I flipped it over to Rec 709, I was like just shooting it in standard. I was like, oh man, this like simplified my workflow incredibly. Anyway, back to what you were saying.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a little bit of both because I got the production side by being on these sets and seeing this stuff. And there's pictures floating around somewhere. I'm sure that my mom has them, but of like,
Little young Garrett running around on
yeah,
set.
and like,
That's
and like,
awesome. Yeah, that's
and like,
awesome.
you know, we'd sit in the trailers and they'd like do our makeup with like the airbrush stuff and do like crazy stuff. Like it was just a wild way to like have like a really young formative childhood of like, this is the coolest thing ever. But then of course my dad was in marketing. So then it was like, well, it's not just the production, but here's what it has to do. Like we have this product, we have this production here, but it has to do something. It on its own isn't enough.
It has to be distributed and everything. Yeah.
It has to be distributed, but like if it's not selling cars, we've wasted
the
money.
point? Yeah.
Right. Like it's not art for art's sake. It's like you have to be creative within the constraints of like actually doing something with it. So I grew up
That's huge, learning that mentality that early on. Like,
absolutely. Well, and like that's one of the things that even today I talk about with clients. Like clients will be like, or potential clients. Like I've seen your work. I like what you do. The stuff that you guys do is great. What's it cost? And then we talk about the price and whatever. But what they're paying for is not the video. What they're paying for is how that video will perform. Mm-hmm. Because if I make you the greatest looking video in the world, but it doesn't increase revenue, it doesn't drive traffic, it doesn't hit whatever metrics you're supposed to hit with it, you've wasted money. Like
Totally.
legitimately. And there's a lot of people in our space that are good at making stuff look good, but don't have that component of how do you make it convert
To sell.
right. What or to inform or to educate or whatever the purpose of that video is. So I got a little bit of both of those, but I actually didn't start in video. So I started in graphic design and web design. So it was like the early to mid 2000s. And of course it was like web 2.0 was the shit. Like everybody was like, does your business have a website? No, we need a website. And it was back when you could charge like an insane amount of money for websites.
They were like, there's this guy Dane Cook out there who's like getting rich off of his websites. What's going on?
Yeah. And this was like right when YouTube started to pop off and everybody wanted to go viral and all this just crazy stuff. So I backed my way into marketing and film, or like using film as a marketing tool, because I started in graphic design specifically and like branding. So
well,
it was like,
you have a website, and then what do you need to populate the website?
exactly,
Like,
exactly. And I mean, back then it was like loading a video onto a web page was a nightmare.
right, yeah.
But yeah, so it kind of backed my way into this to where it's like talking to brands, figuring out who they were, figuring out how to present them to the world with a logo and a website, and like kind of creating this larger brand strategy, which then kind of circled back into I think it was like 2007 or 2008 when the 5D Mark II came out, which was like, that was the whole thing that kicked off the reason probably why all three of us are sitting here, where it's like we now are taking something that traditionally was far more expensive and bringing it down to a price point that's much more accessible. And so then that was like, well, I bought that camera because I saw what it could do. Like Vincent Laforet came out with Reverie, which was the short film that Canon hired him to do to show what that camera was capable of doing. I was like, well, there you go. That's it. It's done.
Well, that brings up a good point too, because in a lot of people are always like, oh, skip film school, don't go to film school and stuff. And I totally get it. You know, like that's a thing that is, you can learn on YouTube.
It's a valid argument.
But there are like other places where like the film school that me and Trey went to is a community college, and the film school education we got is different than even the film school education you get from
down the
like
road
big film schools.
Absolutely.
Where like you can't touch a camera. We're going to talk about theory. We're going to talk about directors. We're going to talk about this and that and this. And it's like, okay, cool.
I mean, yeah, that's like U of M's curriculum. I mean, no shade, but like it's all theory based up until your junior year. You don't even receive a camera in your hands. Where as opposed to WCC, it's way more like trade school-esque kind of learning, if you will, where it's like in the field work, which what this industry is.
And to bring it back even farther, to have you as an educator for that, it was like, I remember our finals were make a website, make a brand, make a business card, and then like, you know, what's your business pitch? So right there, you're just forcing people to not think about theory and like, oh, I'm going to go to Hollywood and LA and just like hop in a production team or like pitch my scripts everywhere. It's like, well, you can do that here. Just start branding yourself and doing that. So it's like a thing that a lot of people I feel like are kind of robbed of almost.
Oh, for sure.
So that was a valuable education is what I'm getting at.
I would say too, to piggyback off of that, is like, I don't think Drop Creative would be here without that type of teaching either, where it's like he forced us to make these things, and granted we weren't even Drop Creative back then, but like just that overall mindset that you kind of instilled in me, and I would say him too, is just like that working for yourself mentality and stuff, and that's where like this all kind of came about. So
yeah,
well, and that goes to kind of the idea of like, what do you want to do? Like, not everybody wants to make money at this, and that's also fine. Where it's like some people want to just create art for the sake of creating art, and that's what they want to do, and I love that. Like, I'm super into that. But like, especially you guys, when you guys came through, you guys already were so talented, you know, coming into the thing where you were already at this spot of like, how do we turn this into a business? And so you guys were super easy to teach because it's like, well, that if you have the drive to do it, it's super easy to do. Most people don't do it because the business component of being a filmmaker has nothing to do with filmmaking. And I think that that's really hard for people who just want to make films and movies or commercials or whatever, where it's like, no, we have to like understand insurance and paperwork and contracts and client negotiations. And like, there's like so many other things that stack into it to then afford you the luxury of actually doing the thing that you want to do.
Yeah,
totally.
But like, if you just want to make art, just go make art. But I think, John, to your point, I think that like, truthfully, the most valuable thing somebody's going to get out of film school is the network of people that they meet when they're in film school.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the thing that you're not going to get online. Reddit is full of trolls. YouTube is going to try to sell you something forever. It's like, you don't get the camaraderie, you don't get the sounding boards, and then you don't find people that have different skill sets. Like, there are some people who just want to be editors. I think those people are insane.
Yeah.
But like, there are people who like editing is their jam. I need those people because I hate editing.
Yeah, your position is definitely really valuable in the sense that WCC is you get the fresh pick at all the hot rising
Everybody.
Stars. So.
You're good? Come on over. Let's go. But yeah, no. So I think that like, yes, you could go to the University of YouTube and get the technical understanding of aperture, ISO, white balance, all of this stuff, what bit rates are, bit depths, all of the technical gearhead stuff. But what you won't get is peer review. What you won't get is like instructor review, and you're not going to get any of the back and forth networking and camaraderie. Like, I managed 2 different shoots today. Both shoots were run by WCC alumni. just people that I had met through this thing and whatever. And then they all worked with each other, like Sam and Lewis and Griffin and Colton and like all of these people, like all get connected that never knew each other before WCC. And now they're working on film stuff every day with other WCC alum.
Yeah. The WCC film community, I feel like, runs really deep throughout the Ann Arbor, Ypsi,
Huge.
Southeast Michigan area. I would even say, I mean, it's every single time I'm on set, whether it's, I mean, if I don't know that, like, I've ran into so many people that are like, oh yeah, I went through the program too. And it's like,
Right.
dang, okay. Well,
Yeah. And also, too, it comes down to, like, me and Trey have discussed things of, like, oh, L.A. possibility. Or
Sure.
like, oh, this or that. And it's just
No.
like, yeah, it's like, wait a minute. Who are we going to call? Like, where's our network? Like, we've already spent this many years here into
Right.
the Troy area where it's like the expansive network that you have is, like, people don't realize how important community is.
Sure.
So without that, I don't think you really can realize how important it is until you don't have it. And then you're like, holy shit, I'm screwed.
Yeah. I talk about this a lot because people, when they find out that I'm from Southern California, they're just like, well, how did you end up
Why'd you
here?
leave?
Like, why'd you leave? And I'm like, because it's terrible. Like, it's like it's the thing is that there's the big fish, small pond, small fish, big pond situation. The thing is that in Southern California, the chances of my barista at Starbucks being as good of a cinematographer as I am is pretty high. You know what I mean? Like
that's so valid. Yes.
like the chance of
The guy at the Genius Bar knowing how to do everything, too.
100% a better editor than I would ever be.
oh yeah,
you
he's
know?
fully Cinema 4D certified and everything.
Like without a doubt, you know. So like the server has written 4 feature-length scripts that have got bought by Sony. Like
that's
it's
a requirement
everywhere.
there at Starbucks. I heard.
You have to, yeah. If you don't have a script already approved,
You have to submit
Exactly, yeah.
you know, feature too.
yeah, 120 pages or nothing. So there's that component of it, and then of course, like the regional mentality of LA is very different too, because everybody doing the same thing, there's this weird competitiveness that kind of creeps in, to where it's like, not only do I need to succeed, but you have to fail in order for me to succeed.
Yeah, you got to step on everybody to rise to the top.
And it's this weird kind of like toxic way of working. And what's really cool about the internet, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but what's cool about that is that like it has freed everybody up so that way nobody has to live in LA. So like most of your A-list Hollywood celebrities, they have a house there. They don't live there.
Yeah.
Directors don't live. Pierce Brosnan lives in Hawaii. Fantastic. Good for you. Like, that's great. And then, like, if the project calls for it, you go to LA for 8 weeks, you shoot your thing, you leave. Like, whatever, no big deal.
Who's the guy who's got the house out in Saline or Dexter? Is it Jeff Daniels? Or
Yeah, Jeff Daniels lives out in Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea, that's where it is.
Yeah. It's like, and that's becoming more and more common to where, like, now I would say 50% of the work that my company gets is from outside of our region. So it'll be New York, it'll be LA, it'll be Atlanta, it'll be Houston. And instead of flying crews out and all of the expense that is incurred with travel, they'd rather hire local units to go shoot second unit stuff or whatever it is that they're doing. So like, I'm getting a ton of work from those places because I'm here, in addition to all of the work that's actually still here. So it's like, you don't need to move. And again, if your network is your most valuable asset, which it is in business, it's like, why would you start over?
Yeah, that's I mean, the biggest thing about moving to a new city is you're literally starting from ground zero. To whereas like we've had numerous clients in LA reach out to us, and we've flown out to LA and done jobs out there. It's great to in and out weekend trips all day, you know.
LA is fun to visit.
Yeah, it's weird out there though. It's like it's an Instagram filter for
like,
sure. Like just over the whole city.
I remember the first time we were out in LA, like the only person who was actually like kind of versed on set was the sound guy, and he was like the guy that we could actually like talk to, and he would look around and be like, "What the f is going on?" And it's like our director had pointy boots, shiny shoes.
That
like,
was a whole nightmare that we don't even have to get into.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
I remember that trip.
It's just funny because it's like, okay, like everybody's like, oh, it's great out here. Then you come out there, and then the director's over your shoulder, like, this whole thing's being filmed in 60 FPS, right? And you're like, wait, what the fuck are you talking? You want that? You want that? And you're like, oh wait, never mind. I'm sorry. And you're like, okay, go away.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've ran into numerous people who've had the plan of moving out to LA and stuff, but like my biggest piece of advice, besides like just building your community where you're at and stuff, I mean, some people it's really helpful to move out of the hometown or wherever you grew up or went to school in. But if you're going to move out to like LA or any of those big cities, like don't move out there in hopes to find a plan. Move out there with a plan or a connection, rather. Like so many people are like, oh, I'm going to go meet my producer that I can sell this script to and stuff, like where that's going to be a really toxic situation where like if you have that plan and that connection already established, like moving out to this new place, it's going to help you tenfold. You know?
Yeah, moving for a job is different than moving to find a job.
Yeah.
Like, well, buddy of mine, June.
June's doing great out there.
June's crushing it, right?
Yeah.
Good buddy. He's a great guy. He's a fantastic director. Mm-hmm. But before he moved, he got plugged in to the right people to get representation, to like make sure that he actually had stuff lined up when he got out there.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's
That
very
makes
different.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's way different than being like, I'm going to be the next Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
Going to L.A.
You heard Spielberg just walked on a set one time and just started doing stuff. I'm just going to do that.
Yeah, that was also like 50 years ago. It's like, but you know, the internet is so fantastic because it's so easy to find people and to be found by people, where it doesn't always have to be a 3 martini lunch and a handshake to get stuff done. It's like, no, you could do stuff just over email. And one of the we're going to preface this, very silvery linings of this whole pandemic situation is that it has normalized telecommunication. It has normalized remote and distance work. It has normalized so much of this idea that like you don't have to be here or there or wherever to make it happen.
And the
I
companies
find it kind of comical that just some companies are like just now realizing that too, it seems like, to where they're like, oh yeah, we can use this thing, like you said, called the internet and actually find other people, like instead of just using Joe Schmo down the block. Like,
It's like if we don't micromanage our employees and like force them to be in unhealthy situations and unhealthy work environments, they're going to do better. And then on top of that, we don't have to pay for this brick and mortar or like capital building like that we're spending so much money on rent on. Like what?
Yeah. I love like the businesses that spend the tens of millions or billions of dollars on these like giant campuses, and now they're like trying to bring all their employees back. The employees are like, "No, I'm good."
A couple of them on the north side have like gone up for sale.
Of course,
Yeah.
they would have to.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Like big commercial buildings, and now we're just like, wait, we leveled out like the fields for this. Like, can we bring that nature back?
Right. Well, I was talking to somebody about like Detroit, because of course, like we know that Detroit's dope. But like I feel like outside of Southeast Michigan, I mean, even
People think
on
Detroit
the
is
west
scared
side,
of terrifying.
yeah,
Stuff.
they think that like you're either going to get murdered anywhere, or that like there are no buildings, like it's like just leveled post-apocalyptic whatever. And what's cool about Detroit is that like Detroit's revitalization, I feel, is already now 10 years ahead of the issues that you're going to find in New York and LA and Chicago and all of these places, where they now have all of these like downtown business office buildings that they can't fill. And it's like, Detroit's like, we've been there. Now they're apartments.
Yeah, exactly. We've crossed that bridge
Like,
already.
we're good. Like,
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because I got a buddy in Chicago and he loves it there, and I go to visit him from time to time. And me and Trey have talked about this. I personally don't like Chicago, and I could use the word hate Chicago because of just like the infrastructure. You can't have a car there. There's so many issues. But like, I'm talking to a lot of people there, and I'm just like, you guys don't ever want to go to Detroit? And he's like, I would never imagine. Like, I can't think of any reason I'd want to go to Detroit. And I'm like, dude, you literally got punched in the face on the L last week, and your laptop stolen from your arms. Like, what are you talking about? It's just as dangerous in Chicago, if not depending.
Oh, way more.
Way
dangerous.
more.
Like, you're fine in Detroit,
Chicago's
dude. Come on.
far more. Like I have a buddy who lives in Chicago, and it's the same kind of thing where he's like, yeah, on that corner I got mugged. On that corner, I got my car stolen. On that corner, I got my whatever. I'm like, and you still live here.
Yeah.
Like, you still choose to be here.
They're like, but you got to keep still visiting me because I'm not going to Detroit.
Exactly. Where it's like, dude, listen.
Well, they'll just get caught in traffic. They'll never make it out here. Is the
That's
problem.
right. Get stuck on the 8, not be
Yeah.
able to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's a 6-hour drive to Chicago, but you can see the skyline for the last 2.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, just to keep moving forward, like Garrett, you have always had these, I don't want to say workarounds or lucrative, but I want to say like, it's kind of outside the box thinking of like how to push forward with gaining clients that I always thought was super interesting. I mean, you taught us ways in school how to like literally hunt down marketers for like bigger companies and pitch to them through their emails, which isn't necessarily something that a lot of people are like know the avenue to go to. And then like now kind of too, like your whole entire YouTube like avenue of this stuff. Like,
I mean, there was a whole like paradigm shift, if you will, like with your work, and just like you're kind of the first person in like this area, I would say, to kind of dive into that world as much as you are. So like if you want to expand on that a little bit, like just your attacking brands on like the back page kind of side of it, with like getting your whole YouTube page, and like the way you go about it too is really unique, on the sense that you're not just another YouTuber trying to be like, hey, here's the new DJI blah blah blah,
Yeah,
like,
buy this thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
DJI pay me.
But
Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah, it's such an organic and natural growth that you've done that's
Sure.
like really inspiring too, and just like the way that you go about it is really unique.
So there's two kind of components to making it as an entrepreneur. The first is that you have to be an eternal optimist, especially when you're starting out. It's feast or famine. And more often than not, it's famine. It's like every once in a while you get a project, it's like you're stoked, but then, you know, you wait another 2-3 months before you get another one. And that sense of eternal optimism, nobody is going to root for you unless they see the success that you already have. So you have to root for you harder than anybody will.
The defeating aspect of it is like what kills me all the time.
100%. Absolutely. And then which feeds into, you have to be comfortable with and or excited about hearing no. No is an important thing to hear.
You're good.
No, you're good. I can wait. But the power of no, both from a receiving end and from a giving end, is going to be the fastest way that you can make money.
I was gonna say, yeah, saying no too is like
You
the
have to
biggest,
be able to say no. And it's terrifying when you're starting out to turn down a client or to turn down money or to say, no, we don't want to take on that project. But if it's not a good fit, if the money isn't there,
If you're going to waste a lot of time doing it when you could be reattacking like certain positions that you need to be focusing on as yourself.
exactly, then say no. That's going to free you up to make more money later. And then on the flip side of it is that, like, especially, so like when I'm trying to shop around a spec piece, or I'm trying to like get in with a particular brand or a brand style, it's like I have to be comfortable getting 100 no's, knowing that I'm then eventually going to get a yes. But if I get 5 no's and then I'm so discouraged that like I'm not going to do it anymore, well, then you're never going to make it. Like,
because that one yes could be GM.
it's going to change.
You
It's
know?
going to change the trajectory of everything that you've got going on. And then the other thing, so the first one is that, and then the second one, and I say this often, is that like you have to have the confidence of a straight white man living in America at all times, regardless of who you are. There's this thing that old straight white people have where they just assume the world caters to them. And it's because the system has been engineered to cater to them, right? So they just have this level of expectation of like, well, this will happen for me, right? And regardless of who you are, you know, your ethnicity, your gender, sexual orientation, identity, whatever, that doesn't matter. You have to have that sense of confidence. People only get weird about talking about money if you're weird about talking about money. People only get weird about hitting different metrics or talking about different subjects if you make it weird.
Because a client, if they're going to hear you, you know, like, it's this much money,
Right.
they're going to be like,
Right.
wait, what? What are
Right.
you, why are you giving me that vibe?
Or-
is it
or-
this much money? Are you going to do it?
So in business school, one of the things that I learned was once you give a price, once you tell them what something costs, whatever the thing is, right? Like this, whatever this costs, right? The next person to speak loses, whatever that negotiation is. So if I say this is going to cost you $10, unless that's too much, we could probably like do 8. Well, now this costs $8, right? Like so it's figuring out how to make that make sense and do it in a way to where it's like you can present a dollar value to somebody in a way that's not going to offend them, even if, like what you were talking about earlier, you have imposter syndrome where it's like, they're never going to go for this, right? And maybe they don't. Worst case scenario is they say no. then we move on. Like, and you have to have that sense of just being able to let it roll off and go in order to make it, because otherwise, being an entrepreneur is a stupid idea. like for your self-esteem and everything else, it's like, man, it's just awful.
Gonna crush you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have to be resilient in a sense, and it's just a lot of
It's just
eating shit for a while.
Yeah, and the thing is that you feel defeated sometimes,
Of course.
but not showing that, first of all, which feels toxic, but you got to do it, unfortunately, because this is the world we live in.
Right.
But then also being able to, like, when you get that yes, like, also know, like, this is everything that I've been working for.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, this, like, we can do this, and it's, you know, the other client just wasn't right fit for this opportunity. So
Exactly.
not letting things get to you and stuff.
Yeah, and that's one of the nice things about spec work, which is really cool, is that, like, if you shoot something for spec, there are more than one company that would be interested in that, right? So, like, we did some work with Adidas. It's like, so we did some spec stuff, shop it to Nike, shop it to Under Armour, shop it to Puma, shop it all the way around, and then you land on somebody who's like, yeah, that concept is cool, let's go with something like that. It's like, okay, sweet.
Then you got a gig.
And then you got a gig, and then you can move on and you can do that stuff. And it's like, without the spec, you might not get into those rooms to have those conversations.
Because if on your reel that you're showing your client is nothing but nature stuff, and
Right.
you're trying to get a shoe ad, it's
Exactly.
not
It's not
going
going to work. It's not going to work. So it's like figuring that out.
That's definitely like a huge hitting point on anyone getting in the field on like, oh, like I want to be a mountain bike photographer. Then like,
shoot it.
go shoot mountain
Absolutely.
bikes. Like
I
that's
think
yeah.
we've always tried to do a good job at like making sure our work is super differentiated, but it's like I always just want to do more.
Of course. Absolutely. 100%.
And there is a
You were talking about, like, if you want to shoot mountain bikes, go shoot mountain bikes.
yeah. Fluttered away. It's gone.
But, like, so one of the things that if you want to grow, like, as a filmmaker and, like, as a business, is you have to be comfortable, thanks, man, assuming that you have a seat at the table that you're approaching, right? So, like, if you have primarily just been shooting wedding spots, right? So you got some wedding stuff. That's where a lot of people get their start. That's great and fine. And now let's say that you want to then take that into something a little higher, and you want to go in, let's do a wedding or like a bridal dress company. Leverage this into that, right? We haven't necessarily done that. We've done something close. We can show how we make people look and then leverage that into kind of a brand deal. So it would be really easy when reaching out to a company like that, where it's like, well, I don't belong here. I've never done anything like this. This company's not what. It's like you have to assume that you belong. And if you assume that you belong, everybody else is going to assume that you belong.
Fake it till you make it. You're just blended in.
And here's the thing that's so messed up about that. Nobody's made it. Everybody's faking it all the time. Like, some of our clients are like Inc. 500 companies. Like, when you think of like, this is the company that commercial filmmakers want to work with, it's like, those are some of the people that we've done work with. And they are absolute dumpster fires on the inside. They're just train wrecks in slow motion everywhere. And I sit there and I look at this. I'm like, this is $1 billion company. And they have no idea what they're doing. Which, like, in a way makes me feel better about myself. But then also it's like, how am I not a billionaire?
That's, I mean, same sort of deal as like we've definitely interviewed some higher ups in some of the automotive companies around here. And like, it's like, dude, how are you, like, they can barely form sentences, you know?
Absolutely.
And I mean, granted, they're in front of a camera and what have you, but like even off camera, it's like, the same thought, like, why aren't I a billionaire right now?
Right.
Like, how did you get in that position? But
It's all about who you know.
Well, yeah,
it's a
failing
huge-
upwards.
Yeah.
And you know what you just said that kind of blew my mind a little bit? It was like nobody's made it. And
Nobody.
The more that I think about it, it's like you've got the head of marketing who is like, we're going to hire this guy to do this ad. Does the ad land? The ad landed. Yes. He looks at the CEO. The CEO's, good job. The CEO goes, great. No, I'm not going to get fired. And the shareholders are like, we're all doing great, baby. Like,
That's it.
Everybody's like, this is working.
That's it. The thing is that everybody will claim the success and nobody will claim the failure.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it's the exact same people doing the work either way. But so anyway, eternal optimism, number one. Have the confidence of a straight white man living in America. You have to own every room that you walk into. And that confidence is going to carry you so far, because every single person I've been in a room with on the inside has the same imposter syndrome I do. And if I seem confident and like I belong, there's a sense of relief for them. It's like, oh my God, thank God this guy knows what he's doing. We should bring them on because they know what's happening. Where like on the inside, everybody's just screaming in like late stage capitalism. But like, you know, so figuring that stuff out. But then that pivoted, of course, into the YouTube stuff, which is you treat it the same way.
Slightly.
I'm getting my steps in.
There you go. Up and down stairs and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anything that you do within the creative space, and it doesn't matter whether it's filmmaking or commercial work or photography or whatever, you know, as creatives, which is a very different endeavor than business, if you will, you approach all of it the same way. So when I started on YouTube, it was the same kind of thing where I wanted to take what I was doing in the classroom and kind of bring it online. Got side railed a little bit with COVID and everything, but like that was the goal, was like, let's take, because again, most of YouTube is either, and I'm not going to name names, but like it's either people who don't know what they're doing and are self-starters and are putting out this idea of like, I didn't know what I was doing until I started doing it, and now I know what I'm doing, so now I'll show you how to do it, where it's like, that's just how you convey really bad information. So that's kind of like one group, and then the other group is like, you have to have a red helium 8K, and if you don't, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's like, and neither of those are helpful for anyone.
And I feel like the people who they're in the second group that you talked about, like where you got to have this camera, have never really been in the dirt with the other stuff.
Never,
you know?
absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, so that was the original goal of kind of the YouTube thing, but there is this insatiable need for content. YouTube is a platform that needs content. The algorithm needs content. And so I could sit in a chair and talk all day about the things that we should think about and what we should do and how we should approach stuff. But like at a certain point, people do want to know about gear. People do want to know how lights work. People do want to know what we should be looking for when we're trying to identify whether a lens is good or bad. And that's where then the same strategy that I use to find and build client relationships for work, I was employing those same tactics in how I was approaching businesses with YouTube. And the partnership that I've got with Vitek, which nobody knows the name of that company because it's just kind of a holding company, but like light panels, Teradek, small HD, wooden camera, Quasar, Anton Bauer, Sockler,
All the goods.
all the goods.
A lot, yeah.
I was on a shoot, and one of the things that I always liked to do even before YouTube was like post cool behind the scenes stuff.
People love that.
I love it more than I even like seeing people's end frames. Like I don't care what it looks like. Like show me like what you guys were doing. That's the cool stuff. So I always made a habit of whatever brands were in the behind the scenes photos that I would use, I would tag those brands out. And I would always hire a behind the scenes crew and behind the scenes photographer. So I made sure that the stuff that we had, and the reason why that started is that we wanted to do case studies for clients. So like we shot this ad was successful. I want to build a case study around that to use to then get more work. So I would hire these behind the scenes crews to create these case study videos to then use to make more work. So I had all this cool BTS stuff. So I ended up tagging light panels in one of these BTS things, and they reached out and said, hey, can we put this on our Instagram? And this is like the golden opportunity where it's like,
And you're like, yes, but you have to pay me.
no, even better. I said, yeah, absolutely. Why don't you give me your email so I can send you the full resolution file?
There you go.
So then I got the email for the person who was over there doing that. And like
that opens up your conversation.
You got your
right
contact.
There.
yeah, but like I didn't even talk to them for probably a year, maybe a year and a half. But then like I got to this point to where I was like really starting to do this YouTube thing, because that was even before the YouTube thing started. Then I started getting into YouTube.
Is this pre-COVID?
Oh yeah, this would have been 16, 17, something like that.
Yeah. Keep going.
I don't know what keeps going on here.
Is that the battery grip on the bottom of it, or is that just the camera?
Is there a little temperature thing on there? Feel the back of it. Is it toasty?
That was my thought. I thought it might be overheating.
I mean, it's warm, but it ain't like toasty. Like it's.
I mean, press record, and you have like 30 minutes on there.
29:55 countdown.
That's weird. Well, we're already so far. I don't know what's going on with it.
That's all right. We'll just do it like a short trailer for the video.
Yeah.
But like once the YouTube thing really started, once like I was like, I really want to kind of move into this and make this happen. That's then when I leaned on this email that I had, and I followed up and I said, hey, you know, a while back, you saw some of the BTS stuff that we were doing. I want to do more stuff like that. Here's what I'm doing on YouTube. And I framed it in like I'm trying to do this kind of educational thing where it's not just talking about the stuff you need, but like how to use stuff.
And you go beyond the unboxing video.
Exactly.
Because companies love unboxing videos because then people are like, oh, yeah, you can actually show that our product is there and people can kind of hold it in their hands visually ahead of time.
Right.
But now you're teaching people how to use it.
And that's kind of the
to
way.
the fullest potential.
And taking a more humanistic approach to whole like tutorial videos in a sense, and like more value to them than just like how to color grade your image and stuff. It's more so like why these colors, like, and that's what I really appreciate out of what you're doing.
Yeah, and like and the thing that's important, it's not necessarily the fixture that you're using, it's the principles behind it, right? Like why are we choosing to light something this way or lens something this way or use this particular camera? Because like just like not all cameras are right for all situations, neither are lenses, neither are lights. Like all of these things are tools to make stuff happen. And I kind of want to like contextualize that online of like, yeah, this thing's good, but like here's the principles of why we did what we did with it.
And that's a huge problem with YouTube in the sense that it's like, oh, look at this nan light, like light every scene with it and stuff, where it's like
tube lights aren't always the
more
answer.
Like to it than just that, you know? So like,
my favorite
it's
thing,
always trying to sell you something.
My favorite thing with those promos for that product in particular.
Do we want to just pause this real quick?
Yeah, dude.
What does that say right there?
It says storing.
Well, no, it gives you a little warning label. Sorry, this thing.
I don't care.
Try just switching the slots.
You want to get? I can get up.
No, it's fine. I won't be able to see anything else. It's just there. It says storing, and then there's like a warning label after, like a. Oh, what does that say?
Is the card too slow?
When you just plugged it in. No, it's a.
I mean, everything's fine. It's not like super hot back here. I mean, it's warm, but it ain't like toasty.
Whatever. We can just keep going. I can always just be the thing that normally happens. Audio is just. I'm saying that the camera cutting out, just the normal thing that happens. I mean, it's cut out in other ones before, and we just have like this rotating drop logo.
Spinny little drop logo.
Sure. So anyway, all that to say, so like I pitched this idea to them of like I want to make these tutorials, like I want to like tell people how to do stuff, and I'd like to like utilize your project, like your products, in the way that we do that. And you know, it turned out that they were in the process of trying to figure out how they wanted to do some of their online video stuff, and they wanted to do some of this stuff. So then we like signed this like big partnership deal with them, and so now this is like year 4, I think. Year 4 or 5 that we've been like doing stuff with them, which is cool because like, you know, even in the way that like I go on YouTube and I talk about their products, it's not like, hey, you should buy this product because this is the product that's going to be the best thing for you. Even if it is, it's like these are the principles behind the lighting of why we're using this light to do that thing.
Kind of like your video specifically, how to light a bar.
Right.
You know, so somebody can literally just Google like, you know, bar scene or like how to light a bar, and then you're not sitting there like, hey, this is light panels, blah, 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 blah. You're like, hey, we're going to talk about how to light a bar, and today we're going to be using these.
Exactly.
You know?
Right. And so then somebody who's got like a nan light, right? The principles behind how we light that bar
Can still be applied.
Can totally still work, right? You don't have to have this fixture to do that thing. My favorite thing, by the way, with the way that the nan lights were marketed is that 90% of the material that I've seen is people holding them like lightsabers, where it's like, that's not...
Yeah.
Like that's
good stuff. Yeah.
That's not even how we do lightsabers, and B, like that's also not helpful in terms of like a light source. Like it's just like that's cool.
There's a prop that lights up.
Right. Like it's like, but like how would you use that? And there's legitimately good uses
for tube lighting.
For tube lights. Like tube lights have a huge need in like this space could use tube lights.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just
It'd be
putting
nice.
stuff up and out and whatever and keeping it out of the way. Not useful as a lightsaber. But like, all right, cool.
To each thy own.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, you've seen like a lot of authentic growth and everything like that, right? Didn't you just bump up from like not even a year ago, like an average amount of YouTubers to like how many do you have right now?
Yeah,
To an absurd amount of
a whole 27,000.
Yeah,
There you go.
and
Yeah,
that's pretty
still
good.
something. You're able to monetize and stuff.
Yeah.
and-
27,000 YouTubers who are interested in your work. I mean, like, I don't really know very many people that have over 20K on Instagram, you know,
Right.
and a lot more people are scrolling.
Follow
than
me
they
on
are.
Instagram. I got to bump those numbers. Those numbers are shot.
Yeah,
But
you can plug away.
There'll be in the description and all that. You can find his
It's just my
socials
name.
and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you know his name, you know his socials.
Yeah, Instagram, YouTube. That's about it. Beginning, middle,
Kind of
and
how I
end.
like to keep it. Just if you
Simple.
know me, you can probably find me. So.
I lurk on TikTok, and I always think about making TikToks because I
Oh,
love
dude.
that platform.
We
Like,
lurk on it too.
Oh,
I
TikTok.
live
is so-
vicariously through my girlfriend. She just shows me TikToks,
Oh,
and then I'll
man.
occasionally send them to him.
Absolutely, dude. Like TikTok, I think that they're doing. To me, TikTok is as innovative as Vine was, and
Totally.
like stands on the shoulders of what Vine did. Mm-hmm. And I have not seen that level of creativity in a social platform since Vine.
It's great.
That's
Memes have
fantastic.
completely evolved into a
Absolutely.
way where like I don't feel as guilty as looking at them anymore because they're good content.
Absolutely, yeah. I love TikTok, and at some point, I'll make a TikTok with all the free time that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing too when it goes into TikToks. Like I see some of these TikToks, I'm like, bro, like I know how much work went into that TikTok.
You spent
like,
6 hours.
yeah,
making that happen.
yeah, it's like 40 minutes of filming alone,
Right.
For
God.
like the 1 minute video.
Or the
People
people
go crazy.
and the people that like composite themselves. I love like when the sketch has like 6 people, but it's like all the one person.
I got a hat on or a scarf,
and
or I'm
like
in
just
a
a
totally
towel
different
over their
outfit.
head or
The
whatever.
like
Right.
transitions that people be doing.
Oh
like,
man, I love it. I love it so much.
When TikTok first came out, I thought that those numbers were all a lie. I was like, wait a minute.
There's no
All
way.
they have to do is
China.
just they could just in the app they could just add a couple extra zeros and everybody's
Sure.
gonna be like, oh, I need to make one now because
Right.
like those extra zeros are like what is important to me.
Yeah.
So
I got 2 filmmaker friends that are on TikTok. Chris Vanderschaff, who does all the Phantom slow-mo stuff. He's got a TikTok, and I've got a couple others or whatever. And I was chatting with them about it, and they're like, "You got to get on it."
the engagement's just through the
Well,
roof.
and the way that like there you get paid out, like is being part of like the creator program or whatever. Like,
but you
it's-
get paid out?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can make money on TikTok and whatnot. So like they're like the ad revenue and the creator price tag generation on that compared to trying to build a YouTube or an Instagram or whatever apparently is like so much easier.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
I just don't have time. I'm already doing too many weird things in my free time.
Yeah. It's an
a lot of-
entrepreneurial tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a thing that I sometimes struggle with. I mean, my friend has been like, "Oh, dude, you need to hop into FPV, like all this stuff," and it's like, there's so much stuff that you can tackle and be efficient at before you're just spreading yourself and being mediocre at everything. You know,
Jack
there's
of all
like,
trades, master of none.
yeah, that saying exactly. So like, that's been an interesting thing I've kind of been overcoming is like picking your focuses on what you really want to or have to excel at and not just like spreading yourself so thin. 'Cause
Absolutely.
It's kind of like what you said. I wanted to touch on it a little bit at the very beginning when you were saying like a student will come up to you and say, what camera should I buy? And
Sure.
like, I think the real question is like, do you want to be a DP?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
do you want to do that?
Right.
Because do you want to be a photographer? Like, what do you see yourself doing in the film role? Because there are a lot of people that make a shitload of money just gripping and gaffing and having fun too, you know, and
Of
they're still
course.
involved on set all the time. So
100%. Yeah. And again, one of the benefits that I had growing up and like having access to kind of like these really large Hollywood sets was that like I innately understood that there were different roles. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the, I don't want to call it a con or like a negative only because like
everyone wants to be.
everybody wants to be an everything. You hire me, I will do the creative, I will do the writing, I will do the shooting and the lighting and the audio and the editing and the compositing and it's like you can do that when you're starting out. Sure. Because the amount of money that's getting tossed around is fine, whatever. But like, there's a reason why there are professionals that do one thing and they do that one thing perfectly. It's like the reliance on autofocus is a great example.
Yeah.
The reliance on autofocus in our industry right now exists because there are so many people that are coming from the ground up, which is great. But like, I would rather take a skilled first AC / focus puller any day. Any day.
Then try and spend your money on the best autofocus glass that you can find.
Without a doubt. And it's like, so I'm so excited that we've democratized filmmaking in a way to where like it is more accessible now, and the barrier to entry is so much lower now than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But on the other hand, film school matters now more than ever because it can contextualize and kind of cut through all of the...
Build you a foundation.
Absolutely. And cut through all the YouTube nonsense, right? Just because somebody has a 27,000 subscriber YouTube channel doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. Like, there's 2 channels in particular that have millions of subscribers that are in our space that they have no idea what they're talking about. So just because somebody's subscriber count is high or that their engagement is high or whatever online, as we all know, social media is not the real world.
Yep.
It's not. And so it's like...
And like solely learning from that, like those huge YouTubers is like in result could lead you like down the wrong path of how to do certain things and all of that, which then could lead to like just you ultimately not liking filmmaking, which... learn it the right way and you could be
so a great example of that is that like gimbals, right? Everybody needs a fucking gimbal.
Everybody thinks their work's just gonna be like, oh, that was bad because I didn't have a gimbal.
Right. And it's like gimbal, there is a use for it. I would say of the camera moves that you could do for a narrative thing, gimbals account for 2%, maybe, right? But I remember when the first gimbal came out, when Movi came out, or FreeFly came out with the first Movi, the M15. It was the M10 and the M15, and it was $15,000, right? So I knew a guy who had bought one. He'd invested in the system. I went in and I learned it. Like, he owned it, but like didn't know how it worked. So I was like, I'll go in and figure out how this thing works.
Let's
whatever.
do it.
What a nightmare! First of all, looking back on it, like, holy cow! You needed tools, like actual tools to move things around and do stuff and whatever. So then when the Ronin came out. The Ronin was the stick one, not the overhung
S
one.
or whatever.
The S, yeah, the Ronin S. So the M came out first, and that was very similar to the Movi, but like a more simplified version of it. But when the S came out, it was like the stick thing.
Everyone was just running all over the place.
I bought one.
Yeah,
We loved our Ronin S. It was a workhorse.
I was like, I gotta have one. And it sat on my shelf for 5 years, and it's gotten used 4 times in like a professional setting or whatever.
That gimbal alone, like. Destroyed or like messed with people's mindsets in the sense of filmmaking because of that, like I feel like that ergonomics of that piece, that stabilizer, people then just thought like, cool, I can just run around and I'm spraying and praying at that point. So
whereas instead of being intentional with how we move the camera and why we move the camera, and like there's a reason why we use a track dolly when we're doing push shots. It's like, I want to move in and out. I actually want nothing in the up and down. I want nothing in the left and right. I want just a single axis move, which if you try to do that with a gimbal, you'll find very quickly it's so impossible, even doing the weird butt out duck walk thing, to have no drift left to right or no drift up and down.
Yeah.
Whereas if you used the right tool, it's the easiest thing in the world to get that shot.
So we made a tool for that.
Right. Like, these things have existed for a reason. Like, so, you know, but again, you have to kind of fight against this YouTube culture, right? There was one video I saw the other day where somebody was like, I have learned from video gaming that more frames is always better. So now all of my videos moving forward are going to be shot in 60. Not for the sake of slow motion, but just shot in 60.
That applies in a video game world.
Right.
But like,
But like, there's a reason why we have things the way that they are. And I'm not like the old man yelling in the lawn, like I'm
Yelling at
not,
the cloud.
You gotta shoot
Right.
in 24.
Right, like that's not what I mean at all. But like the reason why movies look the way movies look, and the reason why audiences resonate with the aesthetic that is filmmaking,
Industry standards.
exists for a reason. Where it's like, I'm not saying that your stuff looks bad. It's like, I've bought TVs that have smoothing on them and they look like the thing that you're making or whatever, but I'm like, I immediately like go and turn it off.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's a different application. Video games are cool. They're awesome. I love them. Not cinema. Right?
Yeah,
And they don't
yeah.
have to be.
They're
They're two
apples and
totally-
oranges.
They're two totally different
Yeah.
things.
Well, for example, just when technology and just like societal standards butt heads, it's like I got the new iPhone 13 Pro, not the Max, just the normal one.
Sure.
And it's got the 120 refresh rate on the screen.
Yeah.
And for the first couple days, I was like, this is great. But then, like Facebook and Instagram are still 60. Oof. A lot of the other apps are still 60. Oof. Most only iPhone stuff is 120.
So you're just switching back and forth.
And
constantly.
yeah, so like
British television.
Well, every time I was going in and out of certain different apps, like there's this jarring like 60, 120, 60, 120 in my brain. And at the end of the day, I would have like a headache. And I was like, dude, this is ridiculous. And then I turned it off. Like I don't even use it because it gives me a headache.
Right. I was telling my students the other day about, and I don't know if it's still industry standard because I don't work with PAL stuff, but for the longest time in British television, all exterior was shot in 50 and all interior was shot in 25.
I didn't know that. That's
Why?
interesting.
I don't know why, but like watching British procedurals and you're switching these frame rates and it's just like it's
jarring.
Oh, it's so jarring. And I doubt that they still do it. Like on any of the streaming stuff that I see from what's over there, none of that's any of that stuff. But like switching frame rates or switching refresh rates, awful.
Mid-project.
Awful. I mean, I can even visually tell the difference between 24 and 30 immediately.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Like it's just like, that's 30. What are we doing? That's 60. What are we doing? Like that, it does not work.
And
100%.
it's crazy too because a lot of people will be like, how do I get that cinematic look? And it's like, well, there's actually a few standard techniques that people continue to do these days.
The first one is buy lights. If you want the cinematic look, the first and most important thing is to light better.
100%.
So you push on that all the time.
Absolutely.
Like not only on your Instagram, but just like how you just did it right there.
Yeah.
Like invest in lighting.
Buy
Make
lights.
sure your lights are okay. There has been so much content that I've seen recently on like YouTube when it comes to like music artists and music videos and this and that. And I'm just like, this isn't lit at all. And it's totally taking me out of it. Like 21 Savage just came out with a new music video that dropped like a couple weeks ago. And I watched it and I was like, everybody isn't lit. Like nobody's lit at all.
Right.
And I was just like, I see why they're doing it. And I was like, I was actually watching it with my buddy last night, and he was like, what do you mean? This is sick. And I was just like, what are you for you?
Someone running around probably with a Komodo and
Well,
not
it's just
knowing
like,
anything.
There's a
they just
guy
got
leaning
the-
against the car smoking a cigarette, and it's just like, yeah, he's outside and it's lit, but like there's no fill on his face.
Right.
Like everything is falling dead, and it's just it's annoying.
Lights and lenses. If you're going to invest in anything, like caveat, if you want to be a cinematographer, lights and lenses. Rent camera bodies, right?
all day, because that's the technology that's always going to be evolving and stuff. And lenses and stuff, you can still use. I mean, I still use lenses from the.
The red Komodo wasn't out for a year. Now the Raptor's out.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like,
I haven't even heard of the Raptor.
oh well, I
It's
mean,
the
first,
new
it's all
8K 120 blah blah blah.
it's slightly bigger than the Komodo, and it also costs $25,000 instead of $6,000. Like they're very different cameras. But like, if you were like, I want to have the cutting edge camera, it doesn't matter. It's going to be immediately rendered void, either by the same company or by a different company. So it's like figuring out what you want to do. But like, this is why like I modded out those Leica lenses,
Yep.
right? Those
That's perfect.
those Leica lenses are older than I am,
Yep.
but they're still generating and producing killer images. So it's like, if I bought those lenses and I invested and I modded them out so that way they work as cinema lenses and whatnot in a limited capacity, right? That's going to outlast the next 5 camera bodies that I buy,
Yep.
right? And I'll buy one and I'll sell it, and I'll buy one and I'll sell it, and I'll buy one and I'll sell it, and I'll still have these lenses, right? And lights are the same way. A light fixture is going to far outlast any sort of camera body that you're going to have.
I mean, everybody's still using the RE like 1Ks and 10Ks and all the other stuff too.
Of course.
Super old boys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you just got to wear your gloves.
The interesting thing about those Leicas, I just want to touch on too, for people that don't know, like with the whole serial number thing.
Yeah.
So like finding a serial number with those Leicas below, is it like the 33?
Yeah,
like
it's between
33,
yeah,
yada yada.
3133, yeah.
Yeah. Finding the serial number that fits with that is like severely going to change the quality of your Leica lens if anyone's in the market for those. Because below that number that we mentioned, like the 313, yada yada yada, you can find it on the top of the lens there, on the face of the lens. But below that is when, I can't remember his name exactly, but there was a gentleman who was building the Panavision Primos that are in the same, or the glass or the coating on the glass is the same as the Panavision Primos, which just kind of give it this like way more authentic look to it, that
warm
is
and
really,
dreamy without being like super washed out.
Exactly. So like you'll find Leica lenses on eBay and what have you for resale that may look really cheap, but the reason behind that is because they have different coatings on the optics themselves. So the Leica lenses specifically, when you're running into vintage or like in the market for vintage lenses, are like, it's just very interesting on what you have to look for. And I'm sure there's other cases and other brands and what have you that have done that similar thing. But I just remember researching them a little bit and finding that out. And I was like, huh. So, and you ended up picking up that whole kit and found the right serials and everything and sending them out.
Right in time, too, because now they're impossible to find.
Yeah,
that was wild.
If anyone knows where to find 19 millimeter Leica.
V2, 19 mil Leica are, DM
it's not like 7,000 plus.
Yeah. Like a sub 4K lens would be perfect for that. But yeah, no, but that's the other thing, is that like there are all of these like little sub worlds within the world that we have, where it's like you get these geeks that are like super into vintage lenses, right? So there's a guy I'm connected with on Instagram. His name is Julian. I can't remember what his last name is, but he is like the guru of all things vintage lenses, and he like goes and buys full sets and tests them out, and then like we'll flip them, like if he doesn't, whatever. It's like he's done all the Canon FDs, all the Contax Zeiss, all the Leica R's, all the whatever, and it's really cool to see like how different lenses affect your image differently.
Oh yeah.
So like all industry standard stuff primarily shot on RE cameras, right? So we know the body going into it and the functionality of that body. The thing that's going to bring that personality to whatever the project is going to be how we lens it, right? So are we using, the Cooke S4s? Are we using Pancheros? Like, are we using like Zeiss? Well, like where are we going? Are we using the new RE? What are
the Dune lenses?
Yeah,
I was literally waiting to bring that up.
The
So-
like,
LF RE Master Prime.
And like, what were your guys' thoughts on that?
Dune?
What, Dune?
Fantastic. Loved it.
It's pretty solid. He's not a fan of it. But
Here's the thing. Nothing about the movie Dune, from like a cinephile pinkies out perspective, was interesting, right? It was a very basic story. It follows a very basic premise. Everything about it, like there was nothing in the movie that I'm like, whoa, like from a story perspective, I did not see that. Like everything's very obvious. But the thing that I loved about that movie was when I watched the movie, I was like, this takes me back to being a kid and how I remember Hollywood blockbuster movies feeling. Like this movie feels like a big Hollywood movie, and I haven't felt that. Like, I love the superhero movies. Like they're great. They're super entertaining.
I get what you're saying, for sure.
But they don't have that it factor for me personally, where I'm just like, this is what a movie should be.
Like a blockbuster before it was ruined.
Exactly. And Dune for me, the whole time I was like, the world felt huge.
Granted, it's because it's on an IMAX style sensor and like displayed in that sense, but
yeah, and I had it in the movie theater I've got in my house. So it's a very specific setting, but like even Interstellar didn't feel as big in terms of the universe that they built as Dune. Like all of the sets like felt massive and everything. I was like,
yeah, the art in that movie was pretty on point.
Insane.
And for those of you that don't know, like the LF RE Master Primes we're talking about, they custom made a whole set for that movie because of the RE LF that just came out, because there's no lenses that can really properly fit that that
sensor.
size.
Yeah.
That sensor size.
And my
So,
understanding is that they only made one set.
just one.
Yes,
Yeah.
just the one. And so now there's one set being tossed around if you want to rent them.
Yeah.
And- yeah,
Good
so-
luck.
And the reason I was going to bring that up was just because it kind of goes back into the whole entire gear versus your storytelling technique to
Right.
where like, you know, like Dune was beautiful. Like I wasn't let down in that aspect in
course.
any single way, but story wise, like I was kind of, you know, I was trying to figure out what the climax was. I was waiting for something to happen, and then the movie ended, and then I was like, "Wait, isn't this like this could have been a TV show? Things could have been slowed down a little bit." You know?
This is interesting. I've had this conversation with a couple of people. Did you know going into it that it was half of the movie?
I thought it was the first third of the movie. Is there 3 or just going to be 2?
Oh, I have no idea. But did
Yeah.
you? But like when you went into watching
Yeah.
it, you did know that it was
I knew it was like a preface,
just a part of it. Okay, because the people that I've talked to that didn't enjoy it as much as I did, they all went
it's a
into it
one-off.
and they thought that it was just a movie, and then they were like, and then the thing ended. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's because like it's part like they're
Setting
doing
it up.
more. Like there's more coming. Like Zendaya had like 4 minutes of screen time.
Yeah,
like
seriously.
like she was the whole trailer, and we got 4 minutes. Like
And then there was like a couple huge story holes in my opinion. Like the whole entire town was, spoiler alert, the whole entire town was completely destroyed because this guy wanted to get his wife back. And I was like, wait a minute. I don't think that would happen. Like, is that really how this story works? Is like a guy wanted to get his wife back, so then that's the whole catalyst of this movie like happening, you know?
right.
But then that, you know, he's gone, his wife's gone. That was they're gone, spoon fed, goodbye.
Yeah,
You know, so I was like, so then I was trying to battle with myself as like, did they just rely on all these like tools that they were in, like the IMAX camera and the new lenses, and everybody got geeked out about that and kind of lost sight of the storytelling, or what?
Well, and the other thing is I haven't read the novels. Like
Yeah.
I didn't read the Dune novel, and when you're
Yeah, I don't
talking
know
about
anything
an
about those.
adapted work, like you're working with source material, and so like
Exactly.
you're also locked in at least to a certain degree
Yeah.
with what the narrative is. So like again, I haven't read the books, don't know, but like if that's the plot line in the book and we're adapting a book, it's like
That's valid.
then we're sticking to that story, and we're going to make it look as absolutely sick as we possibly can. Like, and by the way, everybody in that movie is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Oscar Isaac, are you kidding
Except for whatever. No.
me? Who?
Jason Momoa.
Yeah. Okay, so I
He
was going to
looks-
bring that up too.
Why did he shave in that movie? He
Well,
looks
why-
like Brandon Fraser.
Matt Wilkin pointed this out to me too, and I like wasn't really into his character,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Well, it's because they shouldn't have cast Jason Momoa," and I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Because he wasn't that character. He was Jason Momoa.
Correct.
So everybody saw him on screen as like Jason Momoa. It's like,
Right.
oh, here he is. When
Right.
I really want to see like a bodyguard,
Right.
You know, what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's fair. Yeah, it shouldn't have been that.
Well, and the thing is that like when you're talking to Jason Momoa's credit, he's a fine actor. He's not Javier Bardem. He's not Oscar Isaac. He's not Timothy Chalamet.
It's a different
You're
category.
talking
Yeah.
about people that are like Academy Award nominated and or winning actors, and then you have an action hero.
Yep.
Where it's like he stands out to me by contrast.
Exactly.
Because,
He should
like-
be like, the dude that comes in like shing, shing,
right,
shing, like
right.
whatever. But
Exactly.
Well, there's that scene too where like, you know, he's in that hallway and he kind of gets that look in his eye and he cocks a grin and like pulls out his swords or whatever and he runs into battle, and I was like, there goes Jason Momoa doing Jason Momoa shit.
Exactly.
Like, let's see
yeah.
what he does.
Right.
You know.
Right. Absolutely.
The
yeah.
whole time though, I could not get Brandon Fraser out of my head when he was
No shade.
shaved.
No shade to Brandon Fraser. though.
No shade. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, but he just looked very, very similar.
I mean, and it's the same thing with like Dwayne the Rock Johnson, one of the
Dude,
highest,
totally.
one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood right now. Believe it or not, I think it was
Yeah.
18. He was the highest paid actor in all of Hollywood.
It's like
you
even-
don't go to see The Rock in a movie because of his range. You know, like you go to see The Rock in a movie because it's The Rock.
Yeah.
I was listening to this podcast the other day, and they brought up this point I'd never even thought of. And they were like, there's a reason why Johnny Depp and Brad Pitt and Leo don't do interviews. And there's a reason why. And it's because they don't want you to see them as Leo and Johnny Depp. I want you to see me as like Jack Sparrow or, you know, Scissorhands or whoever,
Right,
all these,
right.
because like you can go in these different roles, but if you know them too personally, you're just going to be like, oh, that's just their personality or this and that. But
Right.
like their range is completely boxed in if you like, know who they are. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Kind of like blanking on his name, Deadpool.
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, same
Ryan
thing.
Reynolds. He's the same character in
It's
every
Ryan
single
Gosling.
movie.
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And nothing wrong with Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds. I
Yeah,
love him. He's
yeah.
great. That's awesome. But it's like, you know,
it's the same character.
It's the
in
same
every single
character,
thing,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, even going kind of in a bigger sense, Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise. I think I've only seen one movie, which was Collateral with Jamie Foxx, that he played a character that I was like, okay, this is not just Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
But like all the Mission Impossible stuff,
Yeah.
Top Gun, Vanilla Sky, like all of these movies that are like iconic Tom Cruise stuff. It's like you watch it because of him and who he is and what he's contributed. And I put Jason Momoa in the same way. I love Jason Momoa. I love everything that he's in.
Yeah.
But again, I don't watch Jason Momoa to see Meryl Streep. You know, like two very different people.
I was thinking too, it's like when I saw Jason Momoa on screen, all I could see was him with like his completely golden Komodo on his like on all of his tilt gear in his house, like on his gimbal. Like,
So Instagram's ruined you.
Yeah. I was like, oh man. And then everybody was tearing him up on Reddit too for it because they were like, we're fucking waiting for like weeks on our Komodo, and Jason Momoa has a golden one just shipped to his house like that. Fuck you, Red.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the Red is a brilliant marketing company. Like they're so good at marketing and getting things in. Like Michael Bay's got his neon green one.
Yup.
And everything Jason Momoa is like solid brass and like, you know,
the
like
Leica that he has and stuff. Pretty rad.
super cool, like super jelly of all that stuff. Like that
You know what I'm
stuff's
saying?
awesome.
Maybe I'm just hating.
Yeah, you might be projecting. But yeah, like, you know, it's the other thing that's interesting is especially when you get into some of these manufacturers, like Tilt is a great example, where it's like they will release a product and then release another product and then release another product and still haven't shipped the first two. Where it's like you'll have these people that are like, okay, you keep releasing stuff, but like, where is my thing that I pre-ordered? Or like, where's the whatever?
And then a lot of people, I remember, like when the Nano came out, like had a lot of troubleshooting issues and stuff like that too.
Yeah. And I love the Nano. Like the Nano's dope. I have it. I use it all the time. It's great. But like I made a tutorial and put it on YouTube because of that very reason of like, this is how you use it and this is how you break it down. And it's like, it's still performing years later.
Yeah.
Because like there's still a vacuum of that kind of stuff.
Not to mention the DTAP power you have going through it, which makes it that much more powerful too. You put a micro USB to DTAP, and it like the voltage out of it is way more now, so it like cranks.
One of the coolest things about that piece of kit is that it is a variable voltage. So like you plug it into USB, you're getting 5 volts, but then you plug it into DTAP into universal power, and now you're getting close to 15.
Yeah,
You're
14,
humming.
15.
Yeah, so it's like I remember back when I had like the Rokinon cinema lenses. My Nano would struggle with some of those because some of the torque is real tight.
Well, like
Wouldn't
it
be
was
able-
just tight. Like the motor
The motor
like, didn't
wasn't-
have the strength.
Yeah, there
you
wasn't
know?
enough torque in the motor to do it. And then I remember like when I finally like got this cable that was USB micro to DTAP, that all of a sudden like I could rip a finger off, and I was like, oh, fantastic! Like this is great. Also, I have like a rubber wedding ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
Don't get crushed.
No, I've seen it happen. It's bad.
Yeesh.
It's bad.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to wearing a ring.
No, dude, get one of these, man. This is like
Yeah,
it's
get
like,
that-
I'll probably-
it's like
yeah.
$30.
Get a ring tattoo, bro. That's how you know you're committed.
No, but
He
then
says,
what happens if she leaves you? Come on, like then you got this tattoo.
Gotta black out my whole hand.
Good. I'm gonna 10-1 real quick, and I'm just gonna grab another card because that's down. But
Yeah,
there's,
I think we're. I mean, what are we at? Minute or hour 26.
I mean, we can.
Hit some wrap up.
Whatever
Yeah.
you guys want. I'm chilling.
Okay, it's up to you, Trey.
Is it? Okay.
Do you guys want to get food after this?
I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm hungry.
Let's do. Yeah. I'm starting to get hungry.
Yeah.
But do what you need to do, and then we can wrap up and do whatever.
Yeah, let's switch the card and we can
Chill.
hit the decline.
Chill. I like this little box here. It's cool.
John, cut this out.
Yeah.
I'll clap. Just that spike. There you
There
go.
you go.
Okay, so we're back. The question that I have for you, Garrett, I mean, obviously I can go on some interesting questions like, you know, nightmare sets or this or that. But one of the things I want to ask you is like, how do you stop yourself from getting too close to projects? Like if you think, you know, this isn't necessarily working out or like not getting lost, kind of like the example that I was just talking about with Dune, even though it's up in the air, like at the end of the day, when you export, are you like just like this is great or like this is trash? Like how do you determine that? Like you just show it to Alex or what?
Yeah. Show it to Alex. If she's into it, we're done.
Boom. That's the baseline of nice shirt right there.
Absolutely. She is the entire
The
brand.
gatekeeper.
No, it's a great question. So, especially when you're doing work for other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, in my line of work, well, in most lines of work, when there's money involved, you are doing work for other people. I have not had the good fortune in my life of somebody just throwing money at me and say, "Here, do whatever you want." Right? There's always something attached to it. So, part of it is staying humble in that the thing that I'm working on is not mine. The thing that I'm working on is theirs. They may be idiots. They may want something that's really stupid, but like the thing that I'm making is theirs. So I'm going to do it the best that I can. But at the end of the day, if I'm not happy with it, who cares? Like that's not what I'm here to do. What I'm here to do is to make sure that they're happy with it. I'm there to make it perform. Now that doesn't mean I'm not going to push back if there's like particularly bad ideas where it's like, we want to do this thing. I hear what you're saying. What you want is this. So in order to do that, we need to do this. Not, like, so we can pivot.
You
and
know,
do
workshop them.
Absolutely. But like the reason why directors and directors reels and like websites for directors always will have their own cuts of music videos or their own cuts of ads or their own cuts of whatever is because the final product that gets through focus grouping and gets through the producers and gets through the end client is rarely, if ever, the original vision. Right? And that's the beauty of reels. Like, okay, I'll give an example. Not a brand that I'm going to say out loud, but we did an ad for, you were on the shoot, for a gig economy app company. And so they had this huge shot list that we had to run through. And we had to do like just this insane amount of work to make this thing happen. And we had to do it on a pretty shoestring budget. Like we had to just kind of make this thing work with what we had. And I was pleased with the footage that we got. Trey shot it, did a fantastic job. We really, given the circumstances, did insane stuff.
It was a 1-day shoot, I believe, yeah.
One day shoot with a shot list of 88 shots.
88, yeah, that's what it was.
It's a
yeah.
nightmare.
Sounds fun.
Nightmare.
Run and gun
I'm just
definition.
kidding. Totally kidding.
So we ship the drive off, right? So I hold on to a drive, ship the drive off, always double back up everything. Always. So I held on to a drive, shipped the drive off. They got it. They cut it together. They came back and they said, well, we are having trouble with the footage. I said, well, what do you mean you're having trouble with the footage? And they were like, well, we've actually never edited red footage before. We don't know how to work with raw footage. Well, that should have been a conversation that we had before. You wanted a television broadcast spec ad that we're shooting the footage for. I'm shooting that in raw. Like that's what you want. So they then cut together an ad, and they didn't send it to me. I found out from somebody else who was on the shoot, who then was friends with the actor who we had on the shoot, who then had posted it on their social.
Okay.
And so like
That's how it always happens like that.
So then I see the ad, and it's dog shit. It's awful. Like to the point to where it's like I'm embarrassed that my name is associated with the thing that they ended up doing. Now, granted, they did all the creative. They did all the post. They did all, like, my job was execution. So like at some point, again, with all this free time that I have, I'm going to cut my own version of it. And that's going to live on my thing, and it's going to be whatever and all that. And, they'll probably like it and want it and whatever. That's fine. But like, there's so many times where that kind of stuff happens where it's like, I have to detach myself from the work knowing that they got what they wanted, even though I'm very unhappy with it.
We delivered all the pieces of the puzzle. They just put it together in a very head-scratching manner,
Right.
I'd say.
Yeah, they put the jigsaw puzzle together.
I got to
upside
take a
down.
look at this. I don't
Yeah,
know what you guys are talking
I'll
about.
show you
show
at dinner.
you.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's truly terrible.
I think they might have used all 88 shots.
And it was like a 30-second spot.
Really?
Oh, it's a nightmare.
They're like, we got all this. We might as well just use it, or else we're just
Absolutely.
wasting
Yeah.
money, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. But yeah, so that detaching yourself from the work and remembering that you're servicing a client. Because at the end of the day, they're not hiring you to make a video. They're hiring you to drive results and whatever that metric is. And so I can detach myself from the end product if that end product serves the goal that they hired me to achieve. Does it suck? Yeah, it hurts. Like, would I like everything that my name's on to be sweet? But no, like Milk Boy exists out in the world. Like, whatever. Like, those things happen.
That's still a classic.
I just showed my students that last week. But yeah,
Hell
like,
yeah.
so like, but you have to detach yourself from the work, whatever that work is.
Yeah, and
I
it
mean,
also
we run into that too. I mean, there's projects where it's like the client loves it, and we're like, this
Okay.
is not something we would ever show. But like, you're right. At the end of the day, they're the ones that's paying the bills, and if they're happy, that's the final video. So
Circling back to what we were talking about earlier, where like I leave a mistake in so that way they can correct it. This is actually one time that it didn't work. Like I left a mistake in, and the client was like, "This is dope. This is perfect. Change nothing. Let's
You're
go."
like, this is dope.
And I was like, no. We should probably.
That was
circle
let me.
back.
I don't really like that. And they're like, no, what? That's the coolest part.
Dude, that only happened to me once, but it did, and
Jeez.
they were sold on it, and they were like, "This is great." And I was like, "No, there's this thing." So now every time I think about that project, it's just like that one thing that I'm like, I left that in there to be removed, and it made it in there.
there's stuff like that has happened too. I would say with our case, like sending a client a rough with like base just rec 709 color, and they're like, it looks great, we're gonna post it. It's like,
Right.
And we're like, yo, no, chill.
hold
Like,
up, like
By the way, to that point, anytime you're sending roughs, always put time code on it.
yeah, we've had to do like proofs and stuff as
Yeah.
well for depending on the client, on the relationship as well.
Yeah,
too.
I don't put watercolor or watermarks on my stuff. I used to. I don't anymore, just
You
because
just put time code on it. That's genius.
clients will be distracted by it. But if you put time code on it, you can give them a functional reason. So the functional
fair.
reason I give them is that, like, hey, if you have an edit, just tell me the number that the edit happens at, whatever. But you can't post something that's got time code
I
baked
learned
into
something
it.
new today.
Yeah, I never, until I'm actually paid the final invoice on the project, I don't take time code off. Like, it's just on there until the end. When I have my money, you get the project with no time code, and you can do whatever you want with it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's valid. Yeah.
Well,
Learn something new every day.
right. That means it's a good day. Okay. I think we're kind of wrapping up here.
Cool.
If there's anything else you want to say, Garrett, before you start plugging, if there's anything else you want to talk about, or just
Let's go get some food.
Yeah. Buy lights, buy lenses. Don't worry about cameras. It's 2021. All cameras are great. Follow me on Instagram and YouTube. It's just my name.
at Garrett Sammons
That's it.
with 2 T's and 2 M's.
Basically, all consonants are doubled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 2 R's, right?
2 R's, 2 T's, and Sammons with an S at the beginning and end, 2 M's in the middle. I think the N is the only consonant that I have that isn't doubled.
You
Hell
should look
yeah.
into getting that changed.
Just everything is
Sammons.
doubled out. Yeah.
Yeah, and at this point, you guys already know who we are. But one of the things that actually hasn't happened yet, and we're still trying to encourage that, is send us an email, askdropcast@gmail.com. If you guys have anything you want to talk about or anything like that, I mean, we've got a list of guests ahead of us, but it still would be nice to hear from you guys.
Absolutely.
Well,
That's
right
it.
on, guys. Yeah, I appreciate you listening. And
And thanks, Garrett, for coming in too. 'cause
Yeah,
I know
thanks for
you're
having
busy,
me.
so-
This was fun.
Yeah.
This is cool.
nice little chat, talk
Yeah.
about some gear, relevant stuff. But
Absolutely.
again, thanks, guys, for listening. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.